That's what being a boss is. You steer the ship the best way you know. Sometimes it's smooth, sometimes you hit the rocks.
Wholesome characters like Lucy Ricardo, Beaver Cleaver, and Ozzie and Harriet Nelson helped propel TV into the mainstream in the 1950s. But it would take another 4 decades for it to produce a character as enigmatic as Tony Soprano. The cold cuts loving, curb stomping mobster was both an extremely violent crime lord and a loving father.
It's called a handicap.
Oh, and he was also prone to panic attacks, which is why he took the controversial step to see a psychiatrist.
I'm glad she's dead. Not just glad, I wished she'd die. Wished.
Series creator David Chase was more than aware of the intricacies surrounding Tony's morality, and over 6 seasons presented him, his family, and his associates as complex characters, the likes of which had never been seen on TV before. Livia Soprano wanted to put a hit out on her own son. Chrissy constantly struggled to maintain his sobriety in an environment where vice was unavoidable, and Carmela spent years trying to reconcile her charmed life, bankrolled by crime, with her Catholic faith. The complexity and nuance of the Sopranos cast wouldn't have been possible without the show's serialized structure. While it was by no means the first serialized show, The Sopranos was crucial in helping kick off the early 2000s boom of serialized shows that we now consider the new golden age of TV. We're going to talk about what made The Sopranos so special and how its success was supercharged by paradigm shifts in TV technology like DVDs and on-demand cable. So stick around, because we're going to be talking about how the birth of binge watching supercharged the success of The Sopranos.
You see this on TV? I gotta watch TV to figure out the world.
Before we get into the wheelings and dealings of our favorite North Jersey crime syndicate, we need to talk about the state of TV in the late 90s, especially how networks loved self-contained procedural shows.
Because this is what it's all about, right? Motherfucking sucking money. Here.
When it comes to fictional narrative-driven TV, there are basically 2 kinds of shows: procedurals and serials. Procedural shows like Law & Order feature episodes that have self-contained stories. Every episode follows the same formula, starting with a new police investigation and ending with the trial verdict. With procedurals, viewers didn't need to have seen previous episodes to understand what's going on.
As far as I'm concerned, he deserves whatever he gets.
But serialized shows continue and build on the plots and storylines from previous episodes, essentially making serialized shows greater than the sum of its episodic parts.
Tell you I ain't been feeling good?
You know what? I wet my ass with your feelings.
Thanks a lot.
Those interconnected episodes allowed the shows to create truly memorable characters, because the show could take its time building the circumstances needed to force its characters to make life-altering decisions.
I gave that pieces of my soul, Adriana. You know what he said to me? He said I should have a drink.
Take season 5 of The Sopranos, which features 2 of the biggest character decisions the show has to offer. Chris sacrifices his longtime fiancée and love of his life, Adriana, for the family after she confides in him that she's been talking to the feds. Tony has to kill someone he loves, his cousin Tony Blundetto, in a vain attempt to appease Phil Leotardo after Tony B killed Leotardo's brother. The Sopranos was not the only serialized show to come out of the 90s. Series like Twin Peaks, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer also came out in that decade too. While all these shows have cult followings today, none of these shows were rating juggernauts at the time, which is why networks were hesitant to greenlight serialized pilots.
You got no idea what it's like to be number one. Every decision you make affects every facet of every other thing.
It was hard to keep up with serialized shows in the 90s. Back then, when a new show aired, you could only watch it at its scheduled time.
Tomorrow night is the big finale, something you may want to record. The problem is you don't know how to program your VCR. Well, you are not alone.
And if you missed it or programmed your VCR incorrectly, you would be out of luck with no easy way to catch up. That's why networks were rightfully hesitant to make serialized shows, and also why those shows never crushed in ratings. If a viewer accidentally missed an episode, the network might have lost their viewership for the rest of the season. Plus, a TV show's profitability was heavily reliant on its ability to achieve syndication, which was no small feat considering a series needed 100 episodes to do it. That all changed with the advent of DVD, and we'll get to that in a bit. But back in the late 90s, syndication was still king and was also very important to HBO. Syndicating first-run blockbuster movies for cable was pretty much the channel's entire business. But after some success with comedies like Mr. Show and The Larry Sanders Show, as well as Oz, HBO's first serialized drama, the channel's chairman and CEO, Chris Albright, decided to follow it up with, you guessed it, another crime drama.
We are a family. So we're gonna deal with this as a family.
Originally, David Chase developed The Sopranos at Fox in 1996, who, along with the other networks, ultimately passed on it. In an interview with the LA Times, he talked about how one network had a problem with Tony seeing a shrink, saying, "Does Tony have to take Prozac and be in psychotherapy? Because I think a lot of people out there in America don't understand it."
One of the reasons that they tried to have me clipped is because I'm seeing a shrink. You.
In truth, getting passed up by the networks was probably the best thing that ever happened to David Chase, because HBO gave him the freedom to make The Sopranos his way. And from the moment Tony leaves the Lincoln Tunnel in the opening credits, The Sopranos was unlike anything anyone has ever seen before. Within the first 10 minutes of the pilot, audiences were introduced to Tony as he gleefully runs down a guy who's welched on a gambling debt in an office park, all while he's listening to doo-wop. Everything about this moment just oozes the Goomba charm reminiscent of Goodfellas, except the fact that this isn't a Martin Scorsese movie, it's a TV show. With the pilot, The Sopranos instantly set a new bar for quality TV, and it basically became the mission of every critic at the time to evangelize the importance of the show.
I really do believe that it is maybe the most important American work of popular culture in the last 25 years.
That's a movie critic at the New York Times saying that. And if you think that's a bit hyperbolic, so did Saturday Night Live, who did a parody of reviews like that in the early 2000s.
The San Francisco Examiner says, "The Sopranos is so good that I'm afraid to look away from the screen while it's on, for fear that it will disappear and I'll be forced to kill myself."
But the crazy thing is, hindsight being 2020 and all, Stephen Holden wasn't wrong. The show managed to find a unique balance between light and dark moments. No doubt, there was a ton of gratuitous violence even in season 1.
They've been told. Twice. Now I'll tell them.
But the show was also surprisingly funny.
So what, no fucking ZD now?
Hey! Leave the fucking cheese there, all right? I love fucking cheese at my feet. I stick motherfucking provolone in my socks at night so they smell like your sister's crotch in the morning.
It's like an ad for a fucking weight loss center. Before and way before.
This guy ever stop breaking balls?
For its first season, The Sopranos was nominated for 16 Emmy Awards, winning 2 of them, and became the first cable drama to be nominated for Best Dramatic Series, an honor it would eventually win twice in 2004 and 2007. All that critical acclaim clearly drew a lot of hype. For the second season, when the Jersey crew traveled to the old country, it set a new HBO record for the highest season premiere with 7.6 million viewers.
Can I just get some macaroni and gravy?
E poi dicono che i tedeschi andare in classe su pizza in mezzo.
And The Sopranos' third season ratings were so good, it was actually competitive with other networks, despite the fact that HBO was only in a third of the estimated 107 million TV homes in America. In fact, The Sopranos season 3 brought in over 22 million live viewers, a record that would stand until Game of Thrones season 7 broke it in 2017.
But get the fuck out of here.
It's insane that premiere viewership tripled in the year between seasons 2 and 3, especially since it would have taken a new viewer over a day of straight watching to catch up before season 3 aired in early March 2001.
My internist told me the picture's not that different from the lazy reader, Tom. But the sound, way improved.
Good. Because nothing beats popping up some Orville Redenbachers and listening to Men in Black, you know?
The Sopranos was no doubt a major hit for its incredible writing, performances, and direction. And while The Sopranos wasn't the only show with talented creators, it coincidentally premiered at the perfect time in TV history. Viewers didn't know it at the time, but the way people watch TV for the past half century was about to get totally overhauled thanks to new technologies like DVDs, TiVo, and on-demand video. When The Sopranos premiered in 1999, it was a lot easier for a viewer to keep up with the show on HBO compared to a regular network. If a fan missed Sunday's new episode, HBO reran new episodes 3 extra times a week. All you had to do was check out the schedule in that little guide HBO sent subscribers and you were gold. But by 2000, there was a tectonic shift in the way audiences consumed TV after networks realized DVDs weren't just for movies. Thanks to the storage capacity of DVDs, it became feasible to own complete runs of a TV show. And let's be honest, VHS tapes were kind of bulky. They released the first first 4 seasons of The Sopranos on VHS, and it's a 20-tape collection. But with DVDs, HBO can distribute a show's whole season and packaging roughly the size of a single VHS tape. And David Chase was a big advocate of putting The Sopranos on DVD, claiming in an interview with the LA Times, "I was the first one to say we should do a DVD." In 2002, Sopranos had reportedly generated over $75 million. And it wasn't just Sopranos DVDs that were moving like stolen power tools. That same year, TV became the fastest growing segment of the DVD market. Thanks to tech like DVDs, people could not only catch up on newly released seasons, but also go back and rewatch how plots evolved over time, allowing audiences to truly appreciate the intricate ways in which seasons mesh together to achieve some real emotional depth. Plotlines like Tony's panic attacks, which were a big part of season 1, also get brought back in later seasons to great effect. In season 5, Tony harbors a ton of guilt surrounding his cousin Tony B's prison sentence. Tony was supposed to go on the job that led to Tony B's incarceration, but he had a panic attack after arguing with his mother and then covered it up with a story about getting jumped. Knowing that, it's easy to understand why Tony went so far out of his way to help his cousin find work after getting out of jail. And you also feel for Tony when he ultimately has to kill Tony B to make things right with the Lupertazzi family. Being able to build tension for seasons instead of being constrained by the artificial TV construct of needing to be resolved in an hour also allowed for the show to create some truly abhorrent villains for Tony to dispatch, like Ralph Cifaretto. Over the span of 2 seasons, he killed a beloved racehorse, murdered a prostitute, was pregnant with his child, and brought Jackie Aprile Jr. into the life, which ultimately got him murdered too. The writers and Joey Pants did such a great job on making Ralph so awful that you can't help but root for Tony when you know he murders a guy. While I can't say that DVDs, TiVo, or on-demand cable boxes, a technology which also came into its own during The Sopranos, directly contributed to the show's high ratings, what we can say is that the show was overperforming in a way that was counterintuitive to how networks thought serialized shows should perform. For every new season of The Sopranos, the barrier to new viewers just gets that much larger. But thanks to DVDs, TiVo, and on-demand, viewers now had multiple options to easily get up to speed. The point is, there's no silver bullet on what made The Sopranos so popular, but giving viewers more options on how to consume the show definitely didn't hurt. Plus, this newfound flexibility in TV consumption increased audiences' appetite for more serialized shows, which allowed newer and more edgy protagonists to break through.
What's that, huh? You got anything else to say?
The release of The Sopranos is one of those historical moments where there is a clear before and after. Before The Sopranos, serialized dramas were few and far between. After The Sopranos, we got a ton of new shows that revolved around morally ambiguous characters, which could only be established through serialized plots. The Shield gave us our dirty cop anti-hero with Michael Chiklis' Vic Mackey. The Americans made us empathize with the family of Russian spies during the Reagan-era 80s. And after The Sopranos' final cut to black, AMC took a shot on one of The Sopranos' best writers and gave Matthew Weiner a chance to introduce the world to Don Draper. Not only did AMC snag Sopranos writers to great success, but it also produced arguably the most famous TV anti-hero since Tony Soprano with Walter White. And let's not forget about HBO's other television accomplishments like The Wire, which painted such a vivid portrait of how crime and corruption permeated every facet of life in Baltimore that colleges now teach courses on how the show breaks down American socio-political issues like poverty, class, and the war on drugs.
Tony Gabagool, Grandma. Something but fat and nitrates.
Gabagool? Over here.
The Sopranos is one of the most influential TV shows of all time, and a big part of that is due to the captivating complexity of characters like Tony, Carm, and Chrissy. But the show's success also owes a lot to the changing technologies of the time. Things like on-demand video and DVDs finally provided viewers the flexibility to consume narratives that span dozens of hours during the times that were most convenient for them. But more than that, the technology made it possible for TV to finally produce dramatic characters that are as conflicted, compelling, and memorable as those heralded in literature and movies. For more on The Sopranos, be sure to check out our Who's Who breakdown on the Many Saints of Newark trailer, and make sure to like and subscribe to IGN wherever you watch.